Run, run, run as fast as you can. By Cloudedstripes. Read by Rat Overlord. Summary. By the time Isuku was 12, he's worked out that hero fights also happen after dark, and that he can go and find him. Or, feral pro-hero Eraserhead hunts Isuku for sport. By the time Isuku was 12, he's worked out that hero fights also happen after dark, and that he can go and find them. There are places his mom probably wouldn't like him going by himself, true, but he's got no friends and an obsession with heroes, okay? He's been so bored recently. What his mom doesn't know won't hurt her. He's walking down a vaguely familiar alleyway, squinting in the dark as he adds to his notebook. 18 new entries this evening alone! That's more than the last 2 nights he's been put out together. When he hears a thump behind him. And behind him, the dim lights seem to swirl around the person. Man? Being? Villain? The glowing red eyes stare into his soul, and Isuku stops working as ice trickles down his spine. Isuku just stands there, and the person stares ominously. And then he growls. Honestly, growls. Lower than Isuku even thought possible, and leaps directly at Isuku, and Isuku runs. It's not until he's halfway home, still sprinting only because of adrenaline, that his mind catches up and he realizes that the probably inhuman figure had just told him to go home. So, Isuku met a fucking demon, a demon who emphatically told him to go home. Isuku opens up his notebook, still clenched in his hands, and writes down everything about the demon, and then he opens up his laptop and searches for yet more information. So, the demon is probably the underground hero, pro-hero Eraserhead, which means that he's not about to be murdered because heroes don't murder children. Obviously, Isuku goes out again. He's got hero fights to chase and a notebook to fill, thank you very much. He's not going to let one weird incident stop him, pro-hero or not. And that night, it's honestly fine. He doesn't see, probably, pro-hero Eraserhead at all. But the next night, probably pro-hero Eraserhead materializes, crouched on top of a streetlight, and proceeds to stare at him again. This time, the light illuminates the scarf that waves around him. So, it's not the light itself bending and swirling around a demon. Good to know. Isuku, secure in the knowledge that this is a pro-hero and therefore safe, beams and waves. Hi! You're Eraserhead, right? That's so cool! Can I get your autograph? And also, what does your quirk do? Go home. Pro-hero Eraserhead growls again. And Isuku he really will, at some point. But he's got questions, see? Okay, but is it some form of telekinesis because your hair and scarf flew? And I couldn't find anything online about your quirk. I could barely find you. Do you know how weird that is, Eraserhead? Isuku's voice rips out of his throat as a scream as pro-hero Eraserhead flicks his scarf out, wraps it around his torso, and proceeds to fling him down the alleyway. Isuku flies through the air and nearly loses his pen. Isuku, still being within 50 meters of the pro-hero who hasn't answered his questions, immediately ignores his probably new bruise, gets to his feet, opens his notebook, and approaches pro-hero Eraserhead again. Pro-hero Eraserhead opened his mouth and hisses at him. Isuku could swear he'd heard the feral cat 3 alleys way back make the exact same sound. He hesitates, but continues approaching, if slower. Pro-hero Eraserhead tells him to go home, and leaps off the streetlight with his hand outstretched like claws aimed at Isuku. Isuku is totally going to die, holy shit, shit. Isuku runs. So, new things confirmed today. Pro-hero Eraserhead apparently hisses and growls and leaps at random children. Perhaps his quirk is a cat-based one? He certainly reminds Isuku of a local feral cat. Well, feral pro-hero Eraserhead isn't going to ruin Isuku's chances at watching hero fights without having to fight through a crowd. No, he's not. Nuh-uh. Feral pro-hero Eraserhead can't be everywhere at once, and he has to sleep at some point. Isuku just finished watching a 3-way fight between a villain, a hero, and a vigilante, and he's made as many notes as his handwriting could keep up with. At least a dozen pages, he thinks. The fight had bounced around the rooftops and alleyways, so he missed some of it, but he's got some interesting theories anyways. He's headed towards the kerfuffle he can hear a few streets away, when something in him whispers to look up, and oh shit! Up contains feral pro-hero Racerhead, scarf swirling above him as he peers over the edge of the roof at Isuku with his red gaze, and Isuku distinctively feels like he's being hunted. It's been almost a week since their last encounter, and Isuku had hoped that it might be the last. Isuku was wrong. Isuku stares up at feral pro-hero Racerhead with wide eyes and mutters another, "Shit!" Because while he's not going to swear around his mom, he feels very justified in swearing when encountering a feral pro-hero Racerhead. Thank you. "Go home, child," says feral pro-hero Racerhead, and Isuku doesn't answer. "Go home." Feral pro-hero Racerhead launches himself over the edge of the building, and Isuku's heart leaps in his chest as he falls into an increasingly familiar sprint through the city. He can see a terrifying silhouette haunting the rooftops alongside him out of the corner of his eye. Things learnt today. Villain/hero/vigilante fights are awesome and absolutely worth the risk of a feral pro-hero Eraserhead encounter to watch. Also, sprinting home results in hurting muscles the next day after. Isuku will have to find a way to fix that. The internet's advice for fixing that appears to be stretching and more running. Lots of running, actually. Practice makes perfect. And then maybe free running if he's careful and gains more muscle. Feral pro-hero Racerhead has access to rooftops and is therefore capable of taking much more direct routes than Isuku is, so he needs every speed advantage that he can get. Isuku starts running on days that he doesn't go chasing hero fights, carefully avoiding Kachan the whole time. He still wakes up sore. "You're small," feral pro-hero Racerhead says, dangling upside down from a fire escape above Isuku's head. "Go home." Feral pro-hero Racerhead taps his shoulder and says, "Go home." Eep! Isuku squeaks. Isuku hears, "Go home," from above him. He doesn't see feral pro-hero Racerhead anywhere, so maybe he just imagined it. Isuku keeps going through the alleyway, determinedly not hearing the successive "Go home," and "Home now," and "Child, be gone," that echo through the alley until feral pro-hero Racerhead materializes in his range of vision to order him to go home. Feral pro-hero Racerhead stares at him, says nothing, and slowly stalks towards him. Isuku takes the hint and starts moving. Isuku yelps as something clatters on the ground in front of him. It's a rock? Another clatter behind him. Another rock? What? "Go home," Isuku hears from above. This time, he's watching in time to see a hand rise into view above the lip of the roof, flinging a rock down at him. He ducks away, and it misses his head. Feral pro-hero Racerhead. It has to be. "Go home." Feral pro-hero Racerhead is crawling down the walls towards him! No, just no! Running from feral pro-hero Racerhead has become very familiar and sort of mundane, to be honest. Don't get him wrong, it's still utterly terrifying, and Isuku is very scared and full of adrenaline the whole time, but also, he must be missing so many hero fights because he's being chased out of the city. So, when feral pro-hero Racerhead next growls at him, Isuku runs. He runs back down the alley and through another several before he stops, and carefully looks around him before starting off in the opposite direction to home and to where he last saw pro-hero Racerhead, moving as quietly as he can. Feral pro-hero Racerhead drops out of the sky in front of him like a meteor impacting the earth, all displaced air and floating scarf and glowing eyes and the yellow goggles, and Isuku thinks, "Oh fuck!" "This is not your home," feral pro-hero Racerhead says in a dark tone. "I said, go home." "Oh fuck!" Isuku whispers, and he bolts back down towards home. "Ah, oh fuck!" Isuku thinks as he runs, as he watches feral pro-hero Racerhead run next to him and above him, consistently just there, staying in view past where he should usually disappear. Oh god, oh fuck! Isuku thinks as he tries to stop running, only for feral pro-hero Racerhead to peer behind him and start to growl. Oh no, I'm screwed! Isuku thinks as he fumbles for his keys and feral pro-hero Racerhead watches him enter his house and lock the door behind him. Fuck! Isuku thinks as he peers through the curtain and feral pro-hero Racerhead is still there, watching! Feral pro-hero Racerhead knows where I live! Isuku thinks faintly. I'm so screwed! Isuku, being a creature of eternal curiosity, musters his courage to test something out. Go home. No, says Isuku. Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead walks forward and stops in front of him, then gently nudges him backwards by the shoulder. Isuku takes a couple of steps back. Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead nudges him again. Isuku can't decide if the glowing eyes are more intimidating up close or from afar. Isuku takes another step backwards. Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead nudges him more firmly. Isuku turns around and walks slowly. He glances behind him. Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead has scaled half the building and watches him walk. Isuku stops. Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead hisses. Isuku can feel himself shaking, just a little. Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead takes a flying leap off the building and knocks Isuku over, then baps him over the head. Then gets off of him, waits for him to get up, and nudges him forward again. Isuku starts walking, and Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead disappears. Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead is toying with me, Isuku thinks, miffed. Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead chooses that moment to come swinging out of the darkness, knocking him over again and disappearing into the rooftops, leaving only the lingering echoes of manic laughter. Things learnt today. Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead enjoys chasing me down. Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead is hunting me for sport? Isuku thinks. By the time Isuku is 13, Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead hunting him for sport is just a thing that happens. It's his worst nightmare, absolutely, and he wants a refund for all the times that it's happened in an actual dream immediately after in real life, but he's also getting way better at running, and it's honestly not so bad anymore. And then Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead gets faster. Look, Isuku knew, theoretically, that Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead wasn't trying very hard, he's just a kid after all, and not a villain. But also, he didn't think about it much, and the sudden return to barely escaping heart-stopping terror and gasping for breath in his bedroom floor isn't really appreciated. Neither are the jump scares. Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead thinks it's very funny to drop down in front of him as he's running and force him to stumble back and redirect his momentum as fast as he can. Isuku hears way more disembodied cackling than he's used to, and he's gotten several bruises from tripping into things. Isuku takes to calling out complaints at Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead when he acts particularly feral. I mean, you can't let fear stop you from living your best life. It's got to be the 1,000th time that Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead has interrupted his nights by dropping out of the sky that Isuku has a light bulb moment. Isuku needs to get roof access. Maybe, just maybe, then he can keep up. Rooftops are faster and more direct. Isuku will even settle for possibly surprising Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead. It doesn't work. At all. The first time Isuku scrambles up onto a rooftop during a chase, Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead stands back and watches, head tilted. He waits until Isuku is firmly on the roof and in no danger of falling before he leaps forward and hunt begins again. At least running from Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead is more fun when they're both working in a three-dimensional space. Pros of having rooftop access. He can see so many more hero fights. He's got better vantage points, and he catches way more fights when he can see them. Cons of having roof access. He can see so many more heroes, specifically Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead, who appears to be sleeping on the roof that Isuku is currently on. He's just lying on the floor, sleeping, in a yellow sleeping bag. Isuku would say he had so many questions, but honestly, it fits with everything he knows about Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead. Does the man even have a home? An apartment? Or does he just lurk on rooftops in a sleeping bag? Oh no! This means that Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead is always around. Fuck. Isuku very carefully reverses his footsteps, keeping as quiet as he can. He'll just have to take another route to the "You need to be better at stealth." Ah! Oh my god, Eraserhead, why? Get better at stealth. Stop waking me up. Also, go home. So, stealth is the thing that he needs, apparently. Isuku flips to a new page in his notebook and opens a browser tab. Isuku's watching a fight that includes flying knives when he gets a gash in his upper arm because he didn't expect any knives to fly at him. It's not like a stab wound, but it is bleeding, and he remembers reading that blood loss is one of the most dangerous parts of an injury. Also, it's getting on his notebook, and he'd be really upset if he has to decipher and then rewrite his notes because of blood. So, he's already on his way home for once when Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead makes his appearance. "What did you do?" he demands, and before Isuku can reply, he's pulled Isuku's sleeve up and retrieved cream and gauze. I got too close to a knife fight? Well, it wasn't really all that close, but knives were flying, and I wonder how they got the trajectories to do that. Isuku trails off into mumbles.
Don't go near a fight unless you can keep yourself safe, dumbass.
He tapped the bandage.
It doesn't need stitches, but don't strain it. You can't run if you're hurt.
Can he keep himself safe? Clearly not well enough. Isuku will have to think about that one. Obviously, real hero fights are on a much higher level than dodging Kacchan's explosions.
Now go home,
Feral Pro Hero Razorhead says, and doesn't chase him when he walks. The next injury isn't Isuku's, much to his surprise. He barely even notices it, honestly, except it feels like the chase is easier than normal. And Feral Pro Hero Razorhead follows him all the way to his house when Isuku's not seriously tried to duck him all evening. And then, when Isuku's at the door, he sees Feral Pro Hero Razorhead press a hand against his side. Isuku hesitates at his door for a moment and says, do you want some medical supplies? Or, maybe something to eat? He's barely spoken to him outside of terrified shrieks and complaints. Ever, really. This is so weird. Feral Pro Hero Razorhead stares at him for a moment and then says,
Coffee, if you have it.
Not what Isuku meant by want anything. He was kind of thinking something to help him not die from whatever injury it was, but sure, he supposes. Brewing coffee while Feral Pro Hero Razorhead looms from across the kitchen eating a jelly pouch is probably the most surreal experience in Isuku's life. And considering he actively seeks out weird quirks in hero fights, he's seen some things, okay? It won't be until several hours later that Isuku will bolt upright in bed and whisper, I let Feral Pro Hero Razorhead into my house. I let him into my house. Oh my god, am I cursed now? Did I just sell my soul? By the time Isuku meets All Might, All Might! He has a thoroughly ingrained reflex to start running at the first hint of Feral Pro Hero Razorhead. Whether it's his voice forever repeating, go the fuck home, or his scarf, which he will use to bodily throw Isuku, though he has gotten really good at rolling at landings, or just his presence. It doesn't matter. Isuku's basically been Pavloved into run as soon as you encounter Feral Pro Hero Razorhead, because he sure doesn't give Isuku a head start on running anymore. The first time All Might tells him to go home at the end of training, Isuku just about falls over from trying to simultaneously run and also not run away from All Might. A couple of months into working on the beach, Isuku can't quite help but notice that All Might's acting odd. Isuku can't think of any big villain fights he's been in, so it has to be something else. Are you okay, All Might? You seem kind of distracted today. Not that that's a bad thing, or that you have to pay all your attention to me, or... It's okay, my boy. Skeleton All Might gently cuts him off. It's just I had a very weird encounter last night, and I'm afraid it's weighing on my mind. You see, I was buying groceries after our training session yesterday, and there was a woman having her wallet stolen in an alleyway, so, naturally, I intervened and returned her wallet to her. However, as I was recollecting my dropped groceries, a man with a very long scarf growled at me and attempted to chase me down. I've seen him around before, and I was sure that he was a hero. It was quite unsettling. Oh, you just meant Feral Pro Hero Razorhead. Oh no, I'm so sorry. Isuku says, mentally caught up in the half horror, half vindication that Feral Pro Hero Razorhead was strong enough to chase down all freaking Might, even Skeleton All Might. Feral? Says Skeleton All Might, even more horror-struck by the way Isuku casually uses Feral as a title. Feral Pro Hero Razorhead? You know him, my boy. Yeah, Isuku says. He's been hunting me for sport until I go home for 3 years now, and he's kind of terrifying, you know? He shows up in my nightmares sometimes, and that's always the worst. What? Says All Might, progressively more horrified. The entrance exam is certainly something, and he may or may not goad Feral Pro Hero Razorhead into an unusually ferocious chase that night, just to take his mind off of his certain failure. He doesn't know what he'll tell All Might. And then he gets in, and he genuinely can't believe it because he's quirkless. Or, well, he's not now, but he's always been. It's confusing, okay? But he's going to UA. He's going to be a hero. And he'll be able to see hero fights from right in the middle, and actually talk to the heroes and ask about their quirks, and he won't have to rely on chasing hero fights to see them, and he won't have to chase hero fights. he won't have to chase hero fights, and he won't have to run from Feral Pro Hero Racerhead anymore. He'll never have to see Feral Pro Hero Racerhead, who hunts him for sport, ever again. That's amazing! Incredible! Almost the best news he's had all week! He's going to be a hero, All Might believes in him, he's going to stop hero chasing and become a new person, and he'll never have to see Feral Pro Hero Racerhead ever again! Isuku walks into his classroom at UA, and between his nerves and Kachan, the guy from the entrance exam who lectured him, and the girl who he saved and then saved him in return, all being in the same room, he doesn't notice the additional, familiar, instinctive fear hovering in the back of his mind. Isuku was distracted, okay? It's the first day at school. You know, encounters with weird people and whatnot. He was distracted. Surely it's forgivable that his situational awareness slipped and he didn't notice the figure napping in the familiar sleeping bag behind the teacher's desk. Surely it is. He'll wish he'd have warning bare minutes later when Feral Pro Hero Racerhead orders him to take a seat like he's a teacher, like he's Isuku's teacher, and Isuku just barely manages to strangle all the encompassing urge to run at the sound of the voice, out the door or out the window. He really doesn't care which. Feral Pro Hero Racerhead grins, and Isuku does not feel forgiven for not noticing. Feral Pro Hero Racerhead is his homeroom teacher. Isuku sits in his seat with a pale face and his mind a litany of fuck and it's bad enough he knows where I live, now he has control over my education, and who in the hell put Feral Pro Hero Racerhead in charge of children, and does this mean that someone out there has authority over Feral Pro Hero Racerhead, and sure, I've learned a lot since I was 12, but at what cost? Isuku will later observe that while Nezu technically has authority over Feral Pro Hero Racerhead, it's really more a feral creature respects fellow feral creature situation. This does not make him feel any better. Isuku finds the staff room at lunch and asks for All Might. The first words out of his mouth are, "You didn't warn me?" Isuku knows fear, okay? 4 years of being hunted have given him a decent familiarity with it. But the first time his homeroom teacher looks him dead in the eyes and says, "Midoriya," Isuku knows visceral terror. He shivers. Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead who hunts him for sport should not know his name. And then the thought occurs to him. He may be trapped in a classroom with Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead, but Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead is also trapped in a classroom with him. And Isuku has 4 years of saved-up, unanswered analysis questions. Eraser proceeds to grin at him, and Isuku contemplates whether it's worth the terror. When the teachers meet with their parents, Isuku answers the door. He glances at Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead and mutters, "As far as my mom knows, you're just my teacher, Aizawa. We met this year. Don't tell her otherwise. Please." The first time Isuku meets an underground hero, they greet him as, "Oh, you're Eraser's kid, right?" His soul immediately flees his body and he wheezes. I'm not, what? Why would you think that?" he asks desperately. "Oh, he was always just telling you to go home. We all figured that he had a rebellious teenage kid," they said. "Are you not his kid?" "You all figured," Isuku repeats, despairingly. "How many people think?" Once, whilst Eraserhead is especially sleep-deprived after the dorms are implemented, he catches sight of Isuku on a run at dusk. He reacts, as per 4 years of habit, and chases a howling Isuku. "Go home." "I am home, Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead!" His classmates, if he had ever told them, had never really believed him about Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead. He feels so fucking vindicated once he stopped being hunted for sport. Or maybe he leads Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead to the staff room instead of his own dorm and bursts through the door like, "He needs some sleep for the love of fuck!" And the rest of the staff are understandably, "What in the actual fuck?" Except for All Might, who goes, "Ah yes, Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead who hunts Isuku for sport," prompting another round of, "What the fuck?" Anyways, as always, I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, definitely feel free to like and subscribe so that you can stay up to date with whenever I post. I, as always, am going to be adding the bloopers right after this, but I just wanted to say that recording this fic was genuinely kind of difficult because I couldn't stop giggling the entire time, I swear to God. Also, Feral Pro Hero Eraserhead genuinely becomes a tongue twister after a while. But anyways, I hope you enjoy my bloopers. Oh shit, fuck, I laughed. So, new things confirmed today. Pro Hero Racerhead hisses and growls and... oh my god. Bruh, this fic makes me so giggly.
Your stealth isn't good enough to do that. Don't go near a fight unless you can keep yourself safe, dumbass.
He tapped... You called the kid a dumbass. I mean, he's not wrong.